I do love these introductions. I've been learning a lot here. If you've been seeing me type away on my BlackBerry, other than one message to my wife, it's mostly been making notes saying, follow up on this, follow up on that. Now, I actually prepared notes so that I could speak for a while without just rambling, which is what I do on TV. For those of you that don't know me, I'm on Sun News Network, host a show called Byline with Brian Lilly, which makes sense that my name is Brian Lilly, otherwise it's rather strange. It's on Monday to Friday on Sun News at 9 o'clock. If you don't get Sun News, I'd encourage you to, because my livelihood depends on it. And also because there's not a lot of people otherwise sticking up for rights and freedoms. They're just not there. Yeah. A lot of the things that you're talking about go against what the elites in our society believe. And the media are by definition elites. You know, so I guess I am too. But I don't hold the same views as they do. Neither does Nick. We're given an honored position that we get to get behind a microphone or in front of a TV camera and speak to a very large audience. So we need your support by having people watch, and yes, it does mean subscribe, because the left went nuts when we announced that we were going to try and get the same treatment as CBC and CTV, and they launched a petition by a New York-based Democratic connected outfit called Avaz to try and make sure we never got on air. I was the one that Margaret Atwood was behind. So that's where we're at. Sun News, by the way, is the brainchild of one man that gets vilified a lot in the media, named Corey Tonight, and is backed by another man that gets vilified in any of the media outlets he doesn't own, and that's Pierre Carl Pelledo. But these two men came up with this idea of having a news channel that was different, one that would give voice to groups like Canadians for Language Fairness. And they've taken a lot of flack for it. They've taken flack for hiring journalists. They've hired more journalists than anybody in a long time because there hasn't been a startup. I don't know about you, but in my view, creating jobs is a good thing. So these two men deserve a lot of credit for where we are. Now, I support the cause of language fairness. I think you guys are on the right track, and I wasn't sure what I was going to say when I came here today, and then when Nick got up, Tom got up, and everyone else speaking, I thought, wow, they're going to say everything that I have to say. A lot of you have been dealing with the issue of language fairness a lot longer than I have, but I want to mention three different things about your fight. Three different areas that are vastly important if you want to win. One, the education of your kids or your grandkids. Not only what they learn in school, but what you teach them as well. Number two, finding allies. And number three, government overreach, which you've just heard quite a bit about from Tom. Now, I grew up in Hamilton, Ontario, and in Hamilton, being bilingual means speaking English and Italian. Or more correctly, English and a specific type of Sicilian from one town, because almost all of them came from one town. Honestly, there's more people from Raccomuto, Sicily in Hamilton, Ontario than there are in Raccomuto now. So it's either English and Italian or English and Tagalog, which is the language of the Philippines. That's another big community there. Those are vastly, vastly larger in numbers than French. I took French going through high school. I even took it past the grade 9 requirement, and then at the end of grade 10, Sister Mary Halawadi said, please don't take this again. I'll pass you if you don't come back, and so I took her up on her offer. Wasn't very good at French, and I've learned more since moving to Ottawa in '98 and living in Montreal, just going out for coffee, going out for dinner, speaking to coworkers, than I ever did in French class. And I understand why now, because when you need a coffee, you're going to learn how to ask for a coffee pretty quick, or you want a beer, you're going to learn how to ask for a beer. But in school, what do they teach your kids? They teach them how to conjugate verbs. Yeah. Did you ever understand why you had to conjugate verbs before you knew anything of what you were saying? I don't, and they're still teaching it that way. I hated studying French that way. I wanted to learn how to speak the language, but then they stand up and they say, Ila. Okay, Ella. Well, what is this? I can't speak a sentence. It's like, learning to play guitar or piano, only ever learning how to play the scales and not learning how to play a song. Nobody says, I want to get an electric guitar so I can play the scales. No, you get an electric guitar because you want to impress a girl, mostly. But then you want to impress a girl by playing a song. Most of what guys do is to impress girls. My kids have been going through school where they learn French from the first day of kindergarten. In fact, at the school it is 1 week of English, 1 week of French for junior and senior kindergarten. My kids still can't order hot dogs when we go to visit, we're on a road trip down to visit their grandparents in Quebec. We stop off at La Belle Provence, they can't order a hot dog. A chinchon? No.
No?
Not at La Belle Provence. La Belle Provence, c'est une hot dog. Du hot dog, or you can just say du steamy, all dressed. That'll get you what you're looking for. But they can't speak it because our education system is not teaching them how to speak French. And then they get older, and as Beth is saying, they're having trouble getting jobs. They're not bilingual. Why? Because the education system for teaching them French is awful. This is the same fight, by the way, that parents in the Quebec City area are having about English language education. They are furious at how English is taught in Quebec because it's taught kind of the same way. They're learning how to conjugate English verbs. By the way, I never sat through a class, and I bet you didn't either, where you were taught how to conjugate an English verb. You know how to do it, but you didn't sit through. Actually, I couldn't do it. I can't think what to say. I write for a living. My grammar's horrible. That's why we have editors. It's job creation. The second thing I'd like to say about educating your children has to do with what we teach them and what we talk about. When I was growing up, I heard from all the adults in my life that you want to work hard, you want to study hard, and you want to get a good job. And a good job, by the way, means a government job. A government job is what you want. It is secure. I don't blame them. They were probably thinking this is what's best for them. My father was a boilermaker, which remarkably has very little to do with making boilers, by the way. These guys are industrial construction. You want a blast furnace refitted? They're your guys. You want a power plant built at Nanticoke, where he spent a good number of years building the coal plant there. And when he retired, they were still, actually, up until he died last year, they would still call him once in a while saying, Frank, we need more guys to go in and refit Nanticoke. Do you want to go in? This is the power plant Dalton McGuinty said he would close in 2003. So these guys are essentially industrial construction guys, and it is hard, back-breaking work. It pays well. The guys do all right when they're working. But it's not the life they wanted. They figured, okay, we want our kids to do better. We want them to have an easier life. So what do? You get a government job. It's got security, it pays well, it's got great benefits, it's got a good pension plan. I think that's inherently the wrong message to send to our children. A good job is not a government job. A government job is a government job. And if any of you are civil servants, I don't mean to pick on you here, and that's not the intention of my comments. But despite providing some valuable public services and processing things like pension checks, which a lot of you I'm sure rely on, you know what public servants don't do? They don't create the wealth in Canada that pays for the money taken off your check to go into CPP. They don't create the wealth that pays for the taxes that pay for the old age security checks that go out every month. Consider this as well. Public servants have some of the highest levels of job-related stress, workplace absenteeism, and complaints about morale. Across all industries, they are at the highest on those markers. To listen to some of them, you'd think that they were working in the big bad private sector and their bosses were all robber barons, trying to squeeze every last nickel out of them. They're not. They're in some of the most secure workplaces you can find, even at the federal government level right now. You've all heard about the cuts coming March 29th with the budget. They face more job security than the private sector. If a 10% cut was coming to a private sector company, people would be running for the doors because you wouldn't know who was going to get whacked. And it'd probably be people at the top. In the